Welcome to the Kip and Chip podcast. Sorry, Zach Lowe, I had to steal your intro, but um, we're excited to record again. It's been since before the 4th of July, I think, that we recorded. So we're excited to get back to this, and um, we got a lot of stuff that's happened in terms of NBA free agency just in the last little bit. So we got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about some of the losers and some of the winners of NBA free agency. We're going to try not to talk about the typical teams. Probably won't even talk about the Bucks much. So we're just going to get into some of these fun kind of mid-tier teams that have had some successful free agencies and also the opposite. But first, wanted to welcome in Drew, my lovely co-host. How are you doing, Drew?
I'm doing good. This is the type of thing I get excited about because I feel like when you watch mainstream NBA media, you hear the same conversations about the same four to five teams that everybody thinks is really worthy of winning the title. But one thing I've really felt is when you only care about the last couple rounds of the playoffs and you only care about the finals, you miss out on a lot of good hoops. And so it's fun. We're going to talk about 10 teams tonight. Chances are none of them are going to win the finals, but honestly, I don't really care. Just because only one team at the end of the season goes home with the championship, it doesn't mean that that one team was the only team that had a successful season. And I just love the sport of basketball, and it's fun to talk about it, even when the teams we're discussing, aren't going to be the best teams in the league in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. This is going to be really fun to talk about. On our podcast, we like to prepare a week ahead or so of our topic, but I think we also need to talk about some breaking news as it occurs too. And so, I mean, this isn't super breaking news, but pretty exciting. I think Damian Lillard has just announced that he'll be returning to the Portland Trailblazers, where he spent the first. Do you know how many years it was he was in Portland? Over a
Oh,
decade.
yeah, probably about 10 years.
Yeah, and so spent a couple years in Milwaukee. Nothing really happened. NBA Cup champ, and now he's going back.
What do you mean
So
nothing happened? He got his ring, man.
he did get his ring, and he
Yeah.
will always be remembered as the him and Giannis, the highest scoring duo of all time in the NBA of all time. So let that sink in. Kind of cool, but got
Yeah.
his ring. That's all that matters.
That's going to be a cool NBA trivia stat in about 15 years.
Hmm.
The high scoring duo thing.
Yeah, it's not to be slept on that stat, even though we didn't get to see a whole lot of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, pretty cool. I think. What are your thoughts on him going back to Portland?
I was just thinking first, real quick. Do you think there's anyone in the world who just learned about Dame going back to the Blazers for the first time from our podcast?
Oh, I hope not.
Yeah, I hope
But
not
probably.
too. But yeah, it's cool to see him put his family first. I mean, it's sometimes we think these guys are machines that should only care about what we want them to care about, which is winning championships and putting up stats or, winning our parlays or that kind of thing. But these guys aren't machines. They're not robots. And, I'm happy for Dame that, he prioritized his work-life balance, I guess, and went back to where his family is. I mean, it's what I would do if I was trying to, make a career choice or career change. But for some reason, sometimes we don't expect pro athletes to think the same way. And he's going to catch a lot of heat for it, I'm sure. But I would never say anything bad about Damian Lillard, and
Yeah.
especially not in this situation.
Yeah. I think it would have been hard for me not to say something bad about him if he would have gotten bought out by the Bucks and then went to sign with Boston or something like that.
Yeah,
Because it was all the talk about him wanting to be next to his kids and how it's been really hard for him being far away. And to see him go somewhere like that would have actually made me kind of mad. Still would have loved the guy, but a little less. But this makes me love him so much more going back to Portland. I think it's such a cool story, and I mean
yeah,
it's sad that he's kind of accepted at this point that he's not going to win a championship, but you have to think that part of that's the Achilles tear, and his mindset would have been different if he was healthy.
yeah.
So
I wonder too what the contract negotiations looked like for him. Just because like there's not a whole lot of teams with cap space. I wonder if anyone was really offering him money this season since he's not
yeah,
going to play for them at all. But I mean, the Blazers 3 for 42 for Dame. Like that's less money in 3 years than he was going to make for the Bucks this season if he was healthy.
Yeah.
Um, so I wonder if he part of it was the Blazers were like, hey, we'll pay you this year too, even though you're not going to play. And maybe
Yeah.
that was something they were willing to do. Other teams just weren't.
True. Now he's due to make like over 70 million from the Bucks and Blazers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting. Um, yeah, speaking of cap space, I just pulled up the cap space for teams, and we're gonna get into that later. But interesting note: the Bucks have the third most cap space, which is negative 17 million. But that just goes to show how few teams had cap space this year, and that's gonna get into one of my losers for this show that I'm gonna talk about. Are you ready to
Mhm.
get into it?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay. So I think with that segue, I'll start out with my first loser. Me and Drew
Okay.
were talking before the show. I have two losers and three winners of free agency. Drew is the opposite, three losers and two winners. And so I'm going to start out with one of my losers here.
I'm
It's
more
going to be the Brooklyn
pessimistic.
Nets. Yeah. It's going to be the Brooklyn Nets here. Um, and
Okay.
my reason why is the cap space. So I'm looking at it now. This is after free agency, essentially. They still have 20 million in cap space. And for people that don't know the financials too well, there's no reason to have extra money. Like
Yeah.
if you're going to spend it, it's not costing ownership more in luxury tax or anything like that. If you have it, spend the money.
Yeah.
And there was even talk about the Nets needing to re-sign D'Angelo Russell, which they didn't. But there was talk about him re-signing just so they could meet the required minimum salary spent. So apparently teams have to spend a certain amount to be able to not get penalized. And so the Nets were at risk of not spending enough. Um, the only additions they made, I had it pulled up. Just give me two shakes. So they re-signed Day'Ron Sharp, which
Ooh.
for
Ooh,
the
man,
casual
that's
listener,
huge.
for the casual listener, you have no idea who that is. They also re-signed Zaire Williams.
Oh,
Not pretty
man.
exciting. They somehow got Terrence Mann for nothing. Literally, when I say nothing, usually it's like, okay, just some bum ended up on the team or they got a second round pick. No, literally, they didn't have to trade anything, and all of a sudden they got Terrence Mann in a three-way trade. So they just took on his salary because they needed to meet the salary minimum. And they got Michael Porter Jr. via trade. I believe they took on a first-round pick in that trade. Am I right? Cam Johnson in the first for Michael
Yeah,
Porter
and
Jr.
they took on a lot of salary in that too, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. So the Nets, the big move of free agency was that trade. They had Cam Johnson, who sadly was probably their best player. Traded him to the Nuggets for Michael Porter Jr., who this is kind of off topic in terms of me saying they're losers, but I think Porter Jr. is a guy that on that team could average 25 points a game. So it might be kind of fun to watch to see what Porter Jr. does next year. But still, Cam Thomas, one of their best players, is a restricted free agent. Haven't heard any market on him, so they'll probably still use some of their cap to re-sign him.
Yeah,
Um,
I heard some talk that he's just coming back. Like he's going to be on the
okay.
Nets. It just they're still working on a number.
Okay. Yeah. And then they had 5 first-round picks, and can you name a single one?
The only one I can name is Igor Demon or something.
Yeah, BYU
The
guy.
the BYU guy who can't shoot. And also
Yeah,
every he doesn't really seem like he can dribble that well either.
and he's a point guard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've on Twitter I saw a bunch of Nets fans saying this is the worst draft we've ever had, and we had 5 first-round picks, like just a bunch of project players they took, and they have no one, not a soul that's gonna put butts in seats. No one's gonna go watch Michael Porter Jr.,
hmm
Cam Thomas, all those guys. So I think we're gonna talk about the Jazz in a bit, who are probably losers as well. But the Jazz at least went out and drafted Ace Bailey, Walter Clayton, guys like that. That even if they don't want to be there, they have this high ceiling in terms of score. They're guys that the fans know and are going to want to go watch. They have butts that are going to
Hmm.
be in seats more than last year. But the Nets have nothing, and they still have
Well,
cap space to spend.
yeah. The other thing to keep in mind too is the Nets are in a competitive market where they have to be something to have some sort of draw. Because if a New Yorker or someone from Brooklyn isn't really interested in the Nets, they'll just go to a Mets game or they'll go to a
Yeah.
Yankees game or one of the other 17 sports teams in that area. But
Mm.
if, the Jazz don't really have anybody exciting, what are they going to do? What, watch the Utah Hockey Club or the some other minor league baseball team they probably have? The Jazz are just they're always going to have a support because of where they are.
Yeah.
But Brooklyn arenas might be pretty dead next year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bad. And yeah, I think they still have cap space because no one wanted to go play in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
They couldn't sway anyone to come there, but I don't know. We can move on. We spent too much time on the Nets, but pretty sad.
Yeah,
All right,
we're
Drew.
we're living up to the bill of talking about teams that don't get talked about very often
Yep.
by starting with the Brooklyn Nets. Ah. Okay, so the first team I want to pull up. Um, should I start with the loser?
Yeah.
Okay. So it kind of hurts me to do this, to be honest, because this is a team that I really had a lot of fun watching this past year, and that's the Detroit Pistons.
Mm.
And normally I don't want to do this. I want teams to be organic. I want things to, take their natural course. I really enjoy, seeing a team that starts under 500, maybe hires a new coach, drafts a new guy, they build around this new guy. The next season they're a little bit above 500. The next season they make the playoffs. The next season they win a couple playoff rounds and then eventually get to, a championship caliber team. A lot like the Bucks did back when they decided to build around Giannis. So I hate rushing teams. And the Pistons are a good example of this where they've been taking their incremental linear steps. And I don't want to be that guy that says you should rush it, but I kind of think they should rush it. And I want to tell you why. So to do this, let's rewind. Let's pretend the NBA Finals ended yesterday. We're going to go back in time. Free agency hasn't happened yet. Let's think about how the Pistons back on that day compared to all the other teams that were in the Eastern Conference. So if we go Cleveland Cavs, I think it's pretty unanimous. The Cavs at that point, everybody thought, the Cavs are going to be better than the Pistons. I would have taken the Cavs over the Pistons 9 times out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's say the Celtics. They were going into an offseason. You knew they were going to have to shed salary. Jason Tatum had just torn his Achilles. I think I would have taken the Pistons. The Pacers, they just lost Tyrese Halliburton. They were going into a pivotal free agency as their team's getting expensive. I think I would have taken the Pistons. The New York Knicks, they fired Tibbs, were an absolute clown show trying to find a new coach. Their team was, getting expensive. You don't know how they were going to be, in the second year with a new coach, having to break up all his continuity and everything. And the Pistons were pretty damn competitive in that first round series. Like it was a 6 game series. They only won 2 playoff games. I think I watched 3 of the 6 games. The Pistons were right there in every single game. So I probably would have still taken the Knicks over them, but it's close. I would have considered and thought long and hard about the Pistons and really considered it. Then we think about the Sixers. I'm taking the Pistons. We think about the Bucks. They just lost Dame. They're going into a pivotal free agency where they might have to shed salary and lose some players. I think I'm taking the Pistons. How many other teams? The Heat, the Hawks, the Magic? I think I'm just going to take the Pistons. So at this point, like, yeah, I don't want to say rush it. I love it when teams take their time. But going into this offseason, the only team that I'm for sure taking above the Pistons is the Cavs. And I'm probably taking the Knicks too, but I'm not super confident or comfortable on that.
Yeah.
And
You saying
they go ahead.
I was just gonna interlude and say, You saying the Pistons so many times has prompted me to say this movie quote. He did what in his cup?
Oh man. Um, and on that note, we should say I think this is one of the coolest team names in sports.
Yeah,
How it fits with their city and everything. I really like their name. I wish they had a better logo
yeah, me
though.
too.
So so this is all happening the day after the finals. Since then, a lot has changed, and I don't like a lot of what has changed for the Pistons. I should start by asking, how much do you know about the Malik Beasley situation going on?
I'm sure you know more because you listen to that podcast about it. So tell me what you know.
He's in a lot of trouble. He's in a lot of trouble. Um, to all those who haven't listened to it, I think the best podcast in the world right now is Pablo Torre Finds Out. And he just did a deep dive on the whole Malik Beasley situation and how it ties into Jonte Porter and Terry Rozier and all this. Super, super interesting. But I'm just going to say Malik Beasley is probably never going to play again in the NBA. I mean, he um have you heard about how much money he owes to different people?
Not amounts, no. I just know he owes people. But what is it?
Okay, so he owes over $10 million to a combination of a dentist in Detroit, a celebrity barber in Milwaukee, a landlord in Detroit, and a lawyer, I think, in Minnesota. And he still owes over $10 million. And he's been owing this for so long that throughout this season in Detroit, he was having a lot of his game checks seized. So he wasn't even getting his paychecks. They just went straight to his
Oh man.
debtors. Yeah. So he's in a lot of trouble. And it really sucks. In the podcast, he said that from what he'd heard, the Pistons heard about this 4 days before free agency. Yeah.
Thank thank goodness they heard about it before.
Yeah, but still, like they've been probably since the day they lost to the Knicks, they've been saying to themselves, okay, the easiest contract extension we're going to sign is Malik Beasley because
Yeah.
he made the second most threes in the NBA this season, set the franchise record for the Pistons most threes made in a season. Like he was so key to spreading things out for Cade and other guys who don't shoot great, like Asar Thompson or Jalen Duren.
Hmm.
Losing him really hurts. And I don't know if a lot of people realize it, but he was a huge part of their team. And having to then make something up on the fly 4 days before free agency, how to figure out, how you're going to fill that void really, really sucks for the Pistons. I feel really bad.
Yeah.
Um, I just, I don't love what they landed on. Um, and I think they have the skeleton, the bones of a really good team. I'm a huge fan of Jaden Ivey. Him coming back,
Hmm.
getting healthy next season could be really exciting. Asar Thompson's amazing. He's the exact type of guy you want to have if you're competing in playoff series. Cade took a step. Tobias Harris looked, I mean, he's always been pretty good, but now that he's out of the limelight of Philly sports, people realize he's actually a good player again.
Yeah.
Um, Jalen Duren is another guy I really love. And then you fill it out on the bench with guys like they got Karis LeVert, Isaiah Stewart's a cool player, Paul Reed is decent in certain situations, Duncan Robinson plays a purpose. All these things like they're a decent team, but the big thing that makes me think they're a loser is they still have $30 million under the first apron that they just didn't spend.
Hmm.
And to me, I mean, they should have gone for it. They should have spent that money and given themselves a chance to jump the Knicks and jump the Cavs and really like go kind of like the Bucks did from 2018 to 2019 where they took a huge jump. I mean, I don't see why the Pistons couldn't have tried to do that this year.
Yeah. I agree with that. This is a team just at this time last year, at the beginning of the offseason, I was saying, man, this team is going to be in the play-in. And that's like crazy to say that for the Pistons. And then
Yeah,
they're, what, the 6 seed? 5 seed? And so,
I think six. Yeah,
6. So, yeah, we should have expected them to go a little bit harder in free agency. Thank goodness they got Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson Could have been bad if they weren't able to sway those guys to come. But yeah, no, I'm in agreement with that. Team that should have
Yeah,
made more of an effort.
just to wrap it up, I mean, how much differently do you, Sam, think about this roster if they're the ones that got Dorian Finney-Smith or Bruce Brown?
Yeah, that could have made a big difference. Or nah.
Yeah, that's another perfect example. Or, I mean, I don't love this guy, but I think he was really important for them in spots down the playoffs, but they just let go of Dennis Schroeder. If they bring
Yeah.
him back too, like I
Hmm.
think they're gonna miss that too.
Yeah. All right. It's a good talk on the Pistons.
Yeah,
Man, Malik Beasley I think he was our second best player last year. So that's a real shot in the nuts.
yeah, it's a huge shot in the nuts to them, but I mean, that dude might have to sell his nuts to pay for all the debts he has at this point.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I'm gonna move on to the next one. So I'm gonna talk about a winner here.
Okay.
I'm going to start out with my most boring one because I think they've been getting a lot of press recently, but this offseason was just too good. I have to talk about it. Uh, the LA Clippers. So the Clippers, I would have even said this before they got Bradley Beal, but that helps. But
Yeah.
just to sum up what they did, they re-signed James Harden, who opted out of his player option, and they got him on, an expensive deal, but he was an All-Star last year, so a good deal. Bradley Beal, they got him just a couple days ago. He got bought out by the Suns in a crazy turn of events that absolutely no one expected. The sarcasm was there. But they got Bradley Beal. I think he was on like a $5 or $6 million contract, so really, really cheap for Brad Beal.
Hmm.
John Collins in a trade. I'm trying to remember, who did they trade away? Oh, that was part of the Norm Powell trade, which I'll get into a little bit later. But they traded Norm Powell, who was a borderline All-Star last year, I thought, for John Collins, who was Utah's best player last year. And then they signed our beloved Brook Lopez.
No,
Um,
no, they did no. Oh.
um, Still sad about that. Still going to be weird to see him in a Clippers jersey. Um, Honestly, I would have rather seen him in a Lakers jersey with his yellow jersey with his socks pulled all the way up to his knees again.
Oh
But
yeah, the white Lakers jersey with the white knee-high socks,
yeah,
and then he promptly ends the game and goes straight to Disneyland.
yep. But yeah, there's a reason he's in LA. But I love this team. Like last year, I remember they played the Bucks kind of the after the All Star break. James Harden had been balling out, and Harden had 45 points or something against the Bucks. And Harden's a guy that is so hard to like. Throughout his whole prime, he was so hard to
Hmm.
like. Not many fans of James Harden,
Hmm.
but something about him kind of disappearing for a bit in Philadelphia, in the dramatic Philadelphia, and then goes to LA, kind of has a slow start, and then last year becomes an All Star again. There's something nostalgic about it, and so in that game where he had 45 or whatever it was against the Bucks, I was watching it like, okay, this is just kind of poetic, seeing him
Yeah,
hit those step back threes again, and started to kind of cheer for James Harden, which hearing myself say that 5 years ago would have been crazy, even 3 years ago. But
yeah,
and then Kawhi is one of the coolest players of all time. Seeing him play such a great series against the Nuggets while he was healthy, because didn't he miss a couple games towards the end of the series,
yeah, he did.
which is sad, like always. But they took the Nuggets to 7, and I think the coolest thing in basketball is when you see a team that has a firm identity. And the Clippers had one last year. They got off of Paul George.
Hmm.
Um, kind of got back to just let's have Kawhi and borderline All Star James Harden, and let's just get a defense around him. And so to see guys like Chris Dunn and Zubac is one of my favorite players right now, and Nicholas
Hmm.
Batum is always there.
Hmm.
Derek Jones Jr. They built a really strong defense, one of the best in the league, and were able to challenge the Nuggets. And then they go out, and they get John Collins, which I think is an awesome trade for them. I think Norm Powell was good, but not a great decision maker, and I think that plagued them a bit. So they get another guy that can. Their starting lineup right now is James Harden, Bradley Beal, Kawhi, John Collins, and Zubac, which I think is really fun. The backcourt of Harden and Beal isn't great defensively, actually pretty bad defensively. But then you have Chris Dunn coming off the bench, who's one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. Um, Derek Jones, Kawhi, Zubac, and then Lopez as a backup center. That defense is nuts. It just
Yeah,
got so much better than it was last year, I think.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean, Bradley Beal. People are gonna be like, "Oh, Bradley Beal sucks." He still averaged like a decent chunk of points last year, but the reason he sucks is because he was making 50, $60 million.
hmm
But him being on a $5 million contract, he's gonna be great again, even if he's not the best fit. He's so cheap and he's going to outplay his contract like crazy. So I think this
hmm
is going to be a team that's top four in the West next year.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought him up. I think I agree with everything you said. I think the Clippers are a really interesting team to discuss because I think depending on who you talk with about them, you can kind of tell how much of First Take they watch. If you, if I'll explain myself in the way that let's pretend Stephen A. Smith is here and you ask him his thoughts on the Clippers. I would guarantee that the first two things he says are, "Oh, who cares? Kawhi's always going to get hurt in the playoffs, and James Harden's always going to crap his pants in an elimination game."
Hmm.
And that's what I'm talking about. What I was talking about at the beginning of this episode. When you say stuff like that, you discount some really cool basketball. And the Clippers are going to be playing really cool basketball all season long. And yeah, there's a chance it's going to end with Kawhi getting hurt again in the playoffs or James Harden missing six threes in a row in the fourth quarter of a playoff game. Who cares? There's a
Hmm.
lot of really good teams in the West that they're probably going to lose to in the end. But there's so much to get excited about with this team. Like, imagine a
Yeah.
double big lineup with Zubac and Brook at the same time, and how fun that would be. Or like you said, Brad Beal's another one. Like Stephen A. Smith would trash on him being a horrible player and a horrible, locker room guy. The dude averaged 17 points a game last year and almost shot 50, 40, 90. And now the Clippers are adding that guy who's probably going to be like their first guard off the bench if they decide to stagger him and Harden.
Hmm.
And you're going to have that guy coming out to lead your offense. I mean, to me, there's a lot of really interesting things about the Clippers I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun team. Go upset the Thunder, please. Go upset them.
Yeah, yeah.
An- Another name I just saw that I didn't even think about that's still a pretty good player is Bogdanovich. They still have that guy, too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I love the type of player that Bogdanovich is. Um, just the squirrely guy who comes off the bench after your team goes 4 minutes without a made field goal and just comes in and
Hmm.
scores like 9 points in the first 2.5 minutes he's on the court.
Yeah, he's a Bucks killer. And every Bucks fan knows we should have had him 5 years ago.
Yeah, I still wish we would have.
Yeah. All right. That's a good stopping point on the Clippers. So, what do you have for your first winner?
My first winner. Okay, I'll go with a team I think we talk about a little bit, but I don't know that we talk about their free agency or their offseason in specific, and that's the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Mm.
Um, I think similar to how we talked about Detroit earlier, they had an opportunity to really, you know, grab a hold of the Eastern Conference and just take it. And I really like what they did. The number one stat I think the Cavs should know about or we should know about the Cavs offseason, the estimated luxury tax bill for the Cavs this season, $141 million. Yeah, which is back to like their 2016 levels. Like they are spending so much to put this team together. And I mean, going into the season or the off season with the cap constraints that they had, we knew they're going to lose a guy like Ty Jerome. I mean, there's just no way they're going to be able to bring him back, and that does hurt that they lost him. I think he was a problem at times in the playoffs, but but that guy has some things he could do on an NBA court that contribute to a good winning team.
Hmm.
But I don't worry about losing him quite as much because they have Craig Porter behind him, who's a guy I'm
Yeah.
really high on. Um, didn't get a ton of minutes for them last year, but he shot 66% at the rim. And his shot chart, if you look at it, is dark green everywhere except certain parts in the mid range. And I mean, that's a lot of times the last thing to come along for young players. So, I mean, he's scoring at the rim, he shoots well from behind the arc. I think that's a guy who has a lot of talent that could just honestly step into the Ty Jerome role and fill it pretty seamlessly.
True.
Um, I love their starting five. Re-signing a guy like Sam Merrill, huge fan of that. Larry Nance coming back. Max Strus is a guy I like. Craig Porter, we already talked about. The thing that does it for me, though, is the one player on their team that I'd always thought, like, whenever this guy's on the court, he kind of hurts them, was Isaac Okoro. I don't, I don't know how you felt about him, but I've never been a big fan of him. A
Hmm.
guy that like I never would have been excited to have on the Bucks, kind of.
Yeah.
But they took his contract and like all good businessmen do, they tried to do business with the Chicago Bulls. They basically traded Isaac Okoro straight up for Lonzo Ball. And I am a huge fan of that trade because, I mean, Okoro was giving them nothing. I feel like Okoro was hurting them more than he was helping them. And they made a low risk trade that potentially has really high reward for Lonzo Ball. And I mean, just getting another guy who can, set the table for the offense, push the pace, shoot, score at the rim, do all those things. He's not going to be the same player as he was in the past, but even if he's 70% of what he was back then, he's already twice as good as Isaac Okoro in my mind.
Can I give you a really spicy take?
Yeah.
I think 3 years from now, we're gonna look at the Ball brothers, and Lonzo will be considered the best player of the family from the last 3 years.
Oh, goodness. Wow. That is like really spicy, but I love it. I don't know if
This
I
is
can
a little.
say I don't know if I can say I agree with it, but I sure like hearing it.
Mostly just wanted to rile everybody up, if anyone even is riled up by that. But I
Oh
just think
man.
Lonzo is one of the most positive players for any lineup like that goes on the court. You can just
Hmm.
see that he's influencing winning when he's on the court. And obviously,
Hmm.
I'm referencing his earlier days um, when he was healthy, but that dude just disrupts everything on both ends. Where LaMelo just goes out there and chucks up shots. So I'm actually really excited to see Lonzo on the Cavs. And I think he's going to have. I'm glad you brought up Porter Jr. because I wasn't even really thinking about him. But I think Lonzo is going to have a lot of minutes and fill that Ty Jerome role.
Yeah, I just think they're winners because when you're that deep into the tax, there's really no plausible ways you can easily, improve the roster with because you have no money to spend, right? And so they knew they were going to have to lose players, but still, even at this point, I feel like the Cavs somehow got better than they were 2 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
just because of that trade that somehow they pulled out of thin air thanks to the Bulls.
Yeah, and I think the Larry Nance signing was actually pretty good too because that means they finally got Tristan Thompson off their roster.
Yeah, yeah, and it gives them a little bit of, in the moments where Mobley and Allen aren't necessarily fitting together well, they can play him out there as their second big, which is big.
Yeah, for sure. I like it. Yeah, I think they're the favorites right now in the East, despite their playoff issues. I think they're the favorites.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay, my next team. I'm gonna give another winner. I'm gonna save my favorite one to talk about till the end, but my other winner is gonna be the New York Knicks. I feel like no one's talking about their offseason. Just totally flying under the radar despite being a big market team. Um, so they're going to run back the same starting lineup: Brunson, Bridges, Hart, Ananobi, and Cat. And it's a starting
Such a
lineup that
good
I
starting
love.
five.
It
So
might be the
good.
best. might be the best starting five in the league. Um, really, really stacked. And their problem last year was their bench. Well, not that the Knicks needed a bench under Thibodeau, who plays his guys 52 minutes a game, but um, it's a miracle that they were as healthy as they were. And we saw 2 years ago that the Pacers, when they played the Knicks were totally injured. It was Brunson and nobody else. And so I think that's a big reason why they fired Thibodeau. I think the ownership was like, okay, we got lucky that our guys are in good shape this year. It's lucky that they have durable players. Like, I'm pretty positive that's why they traded for Mikal Bridges and gave up 5 first-round picks for him, is because he's the Iron Man of the NBA.
Hmm.
And so I'm sure ownership was talking about that and said, yeah, we kind of skated by this year. If Tibbs runs the same minute load next year, we're going to be in trouble. And I've heard comparisons to Brunson being compared to Derrick Rose, how Tibbs was the coach in Chicago back then, and he just ran, he completely ran down Derrick Rose. And that was a big part of why he was so injury prone, is because he was playing so many minutes, carrying the entire load on offense. And that's what Brunson does. And so I think the ownership was actually kind of smart in that regard to move on while they, still had a healthy Brunson while he's in his prime. And so I don't think Mike Brown is going to be a better coach. In fact, I think he might be worse of a coach than Thibodeau. But
Hmm.
maybe that's the reason why they did it.
Hmm.
And so I don't even want to get into the coaching. I think it's a very lateral movement, getting Mike Brown. And so I don't think it's going to influence them too much. I think by playoff time they'll be the same team they were this year. It just might be a rocky start, getting used to a new coach. But talking about their
Hmm.
free agency, Jordan Clarkson got bought out by the Jazz, and they snagged him, which I really like. Um,
Love that.
uh,
Love that.
yeah, yeah, I love it too. Clarkson's a guy. Even if he would have signed with the Bucks this year, I would have been super excited because he kind of has that it factor as a scorer. Can score from all three levels decently. I mean, he's not the most efficient, but he's a guy that's going to get a bucket when you need it off the bench. And that's what they were lacking. The Knicks bench in the playoffs. They got minutes out of DeLon Wright, who was
Yeah.
just straight poop. He was cheeks on the Bucks. One of my least favorite Bucks ever. And
Which is
oh,
funny
he was
because we psyched ourselves up for the DeLon Wright Buck season quite a lot this time last year.
yeah, yeah, because he was actually good on the Heat last year and seemed like he'd be a
Yeah.
good fit next to Dame, and was just cheeks. And so, yeah, they got minutes out of him. Landry Shamet continues to hang around and had some decent moments.
Yeah.
And then they have Mitchell Robinson's on the bench. He's a good player. But now they have Clarkson, who can come in and, I mean, Brunson gets buckets. Bridges can kind of get buckets by himself sometimes, but he's more of an off-ball player. Same thing with Anunoby and Josh Hart. And so to have another creator off the bench next to Deuce
Hmm.
McBride, I think you got two guys off the bench that can get buckets now. And then they got a 3-and-D guy in Yabusele, which I think was one of the most underrated signings of the offseason. A guy
Oh,
that I'm sure a
yeah.
lot of teams were trying to contact, even though he's a little bit older at this point. He's still a super physical defender that you can play at the 3, the 4, the 5. And so I really like the Knicks bench now of McBride, Clarkson, Yabusele, Mitchell Robinson. And then I hope Tyler Kolek, the Wisconsin dude, I hope he comes out and balls.
Yeah. Yeah. Watching the Knicks last year, I feel like the main problem with them was they had way too much McBride.
Yeah.
It felt like whenever Brunson would sub out or one of the other guards, he would come in and would just be expected to do way more than what he's capable of. And Clarkson, I mean, he fits that mold of the Bogdanovich type guy we talked about earlier. He's gonna come out and close the first quarter with some crazy scoring spurts. And when that guy, I know he's streaky, but when he's got the shot going, he's a true three-level scorer who's really fun to watch. And he's finally going to be on a team where the defenders around him on the wings and next to him in the backcourt and even behind him in the front court are really good, high-quality defenders. So like his defensive deficiencies are going to be, masked a little bit. That's another one to me where like when I saw that notification, I don't think a lot of people were talking about it, but the Jordan Clarkson pickup is going to be a big deal um, coming down the stretch next spring.
Agreed. All right, what do you got? Who's next for you?
Okay, so I'm going to transition via Jordan Clarkson to a team that just makes me sad, and that is the Utah Jazz. And I want to start this discussion by saying that we as basketball fans cannot let the early 2020 Utah Jazz teams be forgotten from our memories.
Yeah.
Those teams were so cool. They were so cool, and they deserved to win more than they did. And I'm sad that they never made the finals or anything like that. Did they even make a conference finals?
Ooh. You keep talking, I'll check.
Okay. But if they didn't, they deserve to. I just like thinking back to those teams where, Mitchell was their young scorer. They had a young Royce O'Neal on the wing. Um, Bogdanovich was just a really good player on offense and defense. Conley set the
Hmm.
table for them as kind of like their grizzled vet. Did they make a conference finals?
No, they never did.
Okay. And then like you had prime Rudy Gobert just erasing everything on defense. Clarkson was so good off the bench. Joe Ingles was a sixth man of the year candidate every single season.
Yeah.
I mean, they had other guys like Rudy Gay and young Nah, and there was just so much cool about those teams.
Ricky Rubio too before Conley.
Oh yeah, yeah. See, they were just that was good basketball, really good basketball, and with Quinn Snyder coaching, um, and I remember one of my good friends. Um, I don't know if you'll hear this, but he's a Jazz fan, and I remember when it became clear that the trades for Mitchell and Gobert were going to happen, and the Jazz were going to blow it up. I remember saying, "Yeah, it sucks. It sucks. But if there's one guy I would trust to do this rebuild, it's Danny Ainge." And I remember trying to tell him, have faith, like he's going to bring this all back around. The Jazz, it'll be better in the long run. The Jazz will be a better team 5 years from now because of what they're about to do. So I'm going to ask you, Sam, if you think back on the Danny Ainge Utah Jazz tenure, is the highlight of that time, is there anything that Danny Ainge has done, or has there been any another highlight that's been better than that couple days when we all like kind of guffawed at how many first round picks they got for Rudy Gobert?
Probably not.
Yeah, I that's the
Maybe
highlight.
maybe acquiring Russell Westbrook twice and buying him out both times.
Yeah,
And
selling
Derrick
the
Rose, I think they got too.
yeah. Ugh. But you know what I'm saying? Like he made that trade towards the beginning. Everybody was like, "Oh, this guy's he knows what he's doing. This is a great transaction for the Jazz." And it's just been depressing. Like there's
Yeah.
no one on that team. I feel like Walker Kessler had his moments, Keontae George had his moments, but if I really step back and think about it, I don't think those guys are going to be contributing players on a really good playoff caliber team, especially in the Western Conference. And then the assets that they did have, they've just missed the window on it consistently. Like Jordan Clarkson was a good player 2 years ago. It really sucks that they had to end up buying him out when even just a couple seasons ago, remember when there was those rumors about the Bucks offering a late 2020s first round pick to get Jordan Clarkson at
Hmm.
the deadline? Like the window was there and they just missed it. It passed them by with Jordan Clarkson. I feel like the same thing kind of happened with John Collins. Like for John Collins, they got two guys who aren't going to factor in for them at all, and Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love, and a second round pick in 2029 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, it's just sad. And I feel like the asset management ever since that Gobert trade with Lauri Markkanen too, I feel like he's at a point where he's been quiet enough lately where they're not going to get a huge return on him too if they decided to trade him.
Yeah, and remember last offseason about this time, there was so much talk about the Warriors trading for Markkinen, and everyone's
Yeah.
like, oh man, that would be a fun duo. But he didn't even play down the stretch in a lot of games, and that's probably because they were trying to tank. One of my friends today, I was talking to him about it, and he reminded me that they literally refused to play Markkanen in certain games because they wanted to tank. So the Jazz got fined like $1 million because
Yeah.
they weren't playing him enough. So I mean that maybe that's why Markkanen fell a little bit because they're focused so much on the tank job that got him nowhere in the lottery. But yeah, there's just no one exciting on that team.
Yeah, it's just it's a case study in how futile rebuilding can be in the NBA. I think a lot of it is because of the lottery system. Like you just brought it up, they tanked so hard, it didn't work out for them. In the end, they got a guy that might be good, but he already hates Utah. But then
Yeah,
while they were doing that, they tanked Lauri Markkanen's trade value because they never
yeah,
played him. And I mean, in the NBA, you just all those picks sometimes don't mean anything, and for them, like what, 4 years later now, they're in a pretty sad situation. And I think a lot of teams in the future might be motivated to look at what happened with the Jazz and just say to themselves, let's stick it out. Let's keep our stars and just
yeah.
try and build around it and give it another shot because we don't want to end up like what the Jazz are like.
Yeah, and that's a really good point you made earlier about how they kind of are monopolizing the market of sports in Utah.
Hmm.
So other than BYU football and basketball, people are going to go to those Jazz games, and so it makes my when you said other teams are going to say we'll just keep our guys for now and not rebuild. It makes me think of the Kings in Sacramento. I think that's one of the harder markets to try to get people at games, and so that's why I mean they traded Fox, but they're hanging on to these older guys, the Levines and DeRozans, because they're too scared to do that full rebuild again because they know that they couldn't fill stadiums before. You know, the
Yeah.
post Chris Webber era. There's a lot of dark ages in Sacramento, so
Yeah.
I hope the Jazz get out of it soon. And I think it's smart that they took Ace Bailey, even though he doesn't want to go there, because at this point they have so many guys that could develop into decent players that haven't really made the jump. So many guys they have to focus on getting playing time for
Hmm.
that they might as well just take one that has the highest ceiling. And I think Ace Bailey had the highest ceiling. I think Walter Clayton has really high ceiling. And so, even though he doesn't want to be there, they took him because they wanted to get a big name, a guy that could actually pop for him. So
Yeah.
I think
I
that's smart, but they're still a loser in my mind.
yeah. I agree with you though on their draft. I am a fan of their draft. Um, I mean, you brought up the Kings too. I just wanted to say that there was three teams I was thinking about as I was prepping for this podcast. It was the Jazz, the Kings, and the Pelicans. And those three teams just made me so down in the dumps, just blue and depressed, just thinking about any of those three teams. And I for at one point I had all three of them on my loser list, and I was like, I can't do that to my mental health. I got to pick one, and I chose the Jazz because we might have a couple listeners who are Jazz fans, but I mean, we could do whole podcasts on how horribly managed the Kings and the Pelicans have been too, but I might start crying halfway through, so I decided not to talk about either of those teams today.
Oh yeah, if I was a fan of that team, like the Kings or the Pelicans seeing these trades, it would be really hard for me not to just pick a new team at this point.
That's it. My breaking point, because I've thought about that before too. Would I ever have a breaking point and change my allegiance? My breaking point is where the Kings are right now.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard. Okay, well, let's try to. I was gonna say let's try to make it a little more exciting here and talk about some fun stuff, but I'm gonna talk about another loser. um, actually, this one might be kind of fun because we hate this team. Actually, I started to like them in their playoff run. I'll admit to that, but I'm gonna talk about the Indiana Pacers. I think
Yeah.
I hate the fans. I hate the Pacers fans. I even before the Achilles injury, I started to just respect the hell out of or I was gonna say TJ McConnell, out of Tyrese Halliburton, um, and seeing his clutch moments. I mean, I just kind of got over the corniness of his character, and just started to appreciate the basketball he plays. And I think me and you are both suckers for seeing ethical basketball, and I think the
Yeah.
Pacers were really fun to watch because it was just ethical basketball, and so it was really depressing to see Halliburton tear his Achilles. One of those moments we'll never forget in a game seven, seeing him bang the floor. Never, I'll never stop wondering what could have been if he would have played in that game. And these are our enemies. I mean, Miles Turner just signed with the Bucks, and he posted, "I don't hate you guys anymore," after the Bucks signed
Yeah.
him. And
Yeah.
so it's a huge rivalry. Maybe it was the biggest one in the NBA. But I think a lot of Bucks fans on Twitter went from absolutely despising them to being like, okay, this is actually pretty cool what they're doing.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, have a lot of love for McConnell, for Neesmith, Nemhard, Siakam, Miles Turner was one of my favorite non-Bucks. I think he's just such a cool player that's hard to dislike. Never thought in a million years that we would be able to sign him. Not even the Pacers thought there was a chance that he would leave for another team. And
Yeah.
so when everyone was looking at the free agent list for who was upcoming free agents, it was, oh, Miles Turner, he's resigning. Who's next? And so to see him go sign with another team, albeit the rival of the Pacers, was pretty freaking wild. And I
Yeah.
think the Pacers have been trying to cover their tracks. There's been some interviews that have come out where they said, "Oh, no, we offered him whatever he wanted." But it was very well known that the Pacers have been extremely cheap, totally unwilling to go into the luxury tax despite having good teams over the last decade. And so, obviously the Halliburton injury probably threw a wrench in everything. But
Mhm.
the way their rosters were constructed, they easily could have just given Turner a 4-year deal, and maybe the year after this year, come back 2 years from now, had another deep playoff run once Halliburton's back. But they didn't want to take that gamble, which is one of the biggest mistakes I think we're going to see of this decade. That sounds dramatic, but I think Turner is going to go along to be a fantastic player next to Giannis, and we'll get into that
Mhm.
in another episode. But they totally fumbled the bag, and they have. This is why Pacers fans make me mad. Pacers fans love Miles Turner. Yeah, he got played out of the finals at times just because the Thunder would run that small lineup and it was hard to keep up with. But Pacers fans were in love with Miles Turner. Then as soon as he goes to the Bucks, they try to pick him apart. They're constantly posting, "Oh, you guys don't realize how bad Miles Turner is." When 2 weeks ago he's one of the best stretch centers in the league. And so it's just frustrating. And then the Pacers trade for Jay Huff. Who? Jay Huff on the Grizzlies, who looks like he belongs in a desk, and he
I gotta
he
look up a
had
picture of Jay Huff now.
yeah, he looks like an insurance salesman, but he had like 3 good weeks for the Grizzlies at the beginning of the season, then kind of just disappeared. But yep, there's Jay Huff. Um, the Pacers fans immediately after this trade said, "Oh, we're set. He can replace Turner." Are you kidding me? So
Yeah.
that made me mad. Then they re-signed James Wiseman, who just give it up, man, hang him up. They re-signed Isaiah Jackson, so they have bodies in there, but much like the Celtics, just their roster doesn't make sense in terms of bigs. Um, and so yeah, just really disappointing to see a team like the Pacers, who could have been exciting for the next 5 years, had the whole roster under contract. We were talking in the finals. This team's going to be scary because this was before the injury, of course, but this team's going to be scary because their whole roster, other than Turner, is set, and of course they're going to re-sign Turner, and they didn't. And
Yeah.
so I don't know what's going to happen with them. It's just a bummer.
Yeah, I feel the same way where I'm happy to have Miles Turner, but at the same time just bummed out for them because it's another example of like small market owners just not wanting to pony up and pay the luxury tax, and their team's going to suffer for it, and we'll probably never see anything out of the Pacers again like what we saw this season just because they didn't want to pay for it, you know? Um, but then you're also talking about Pacers fans being annoyed about or like picking apart Miles Turner. And I was gonna say my favorite one I saw was Pacers fans tweeting and being like, "Well, the NBA is gonna realize how much he sucks at creating his own 3-point shot once he doesn't have Tyrese Halliburton hitting him for open threes." And I just remember thinking, okay, two things: centers don't create their own 3-point shots,
Yeah,
and two, has anybody ever watched Giannis Antetokounmpo? People come to play with him and take minimum contracts because he gets people open threes. Like ask Grayson Allen, Malik Beasley, all these guys. They came and played for cheap and they got huge bags elsewhere because that's what he does. And
Yeah.
so I like the front court fit with him and Turner is so perfect, and I mean I loved watching him and Lopez play together. I think him and Turner is gonna be a force multiplier in a whole different way. I think it's gonna be better than we expected. And
Mhm.
yeah, the Pacers are huge losers for letting that go.
Agreed. All right. You got a winner or another loser? What are you going to talk about?
So since we're on the streak of talking about teams we hate, I figure I'll keep it going and bring up the Philadelphia 76ers. How's that sound?
Woohoo. Yep, please.
Okay, so I'm going to list. So I'll start this by saying, I also heard Zach Lowe saying that Quentin Grimes is basically a lock to go back to Philly. So I'm going to list off, let's see, one, two, three, four, five, the seven best players on the Sixers. Okay, here we go. Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, Grimes, Podcast PG, Edgecombe, the rookie they just drafted really high. Um, haven't seen him play yet. Don't know a ton about him, but they drafted him really high, top three, right? So I'm assuming he'll be,
Yeah.
they're hoping he's going to be in their top seven by the end. So Edgecombe, Kelly Oubre, and Joel Embiid. Guard, 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 wing, wing, guard. Top seven players, six of them are guards or wings. So that's only seven minus six is one. There's only one player left in their top seven. Good thing this one guy that's left is a super durable big man, right? He's not going to miss any games for you, right? That's Joel Embiid, guys, is the one guy that's left. They built the team around Joel Embiid and didn't get really anybody to take his spot when he doesn't play. Because did you hear that he's still not even doing 5-on-5?
Yep.
Yeah. And I also heard just yesterday that Paul George also had I think, was it a knee surgery?
Yep.
Yeah, I think it was, and I think it's hilarious. They always call them cleanup knee surgeries.
Oh, man.
Just to,
Ruined after Chris Middleton.
yeah, spill a little um, physical therapist knowledge on you all. When they say these cleanup knee surgeries, they're mostly meniscus surgeries. They have to cut a piece of the meniscus off. And the meniscus is like the cushion basically between your femur and your shin bones.
Hmm.
If you're cutting pieces of that off, you have less cushion in your knee. Not really a good thing. These cleanup knee surgeries are like cutting vital parts of the knee out of there because they're so far gone that they just have to get rid of it. It's not a minor cleanup surgery where all is just going to be fine afterwards. Like
Yeah.
the Sixers injury problems are already hitting, and they built a team where this is their distribution of talent. And what did they do to try and fix this in free agency? They went out and they signed huge big name players that are just firmly in the primes of their career, like Eric Gordon and Kyle Lowry. Just amazing signings. Two more, another guard and another wing. Can you believe it? And then the only other guys, the bodies they have at big man are Joel Embiid, and they're backing him up with Andre Drummond, who, yeah, I mean, Drummond's a cool player. I'll always remember what you were. But in 2026, the year of our Lord, 2026, Andre Drummond should not be playing as much as he's going to be playing this year. And then
True.
they threw Trendon Watford out there as well, who's an exciting player. But it's malpractice to me to build a team like this around Embiid.
You're forgetting Adam Boner, their rookie
I,
last year.
I didn't want to bring him up because I thought it was too PG-13 to make that joke, but I guess you just went ahead and did it.
I feel bad for him because he's probably bullied over his name. It's Adem Bona. Is
Yeah.
his correct name. But yeah, this Sixers team makes me sad as well. And the other day at work, I would spend like 15 minutes with me and two of my other coworkers. We do a fun NBA ranking game or something to break up the day. And the other day we were ranking. We looked at all the projected starting lineups for the Eastern Conference, and we put them into like standings for next year, our predictions. and I had the Sixers at like 11, and my other friend had him at like 9, and then one of the kids had him at 2. And I was like, "What are you smoking?" He's like, "On paper, this looks like a great lineup." And I was like, "Yeah, it did last year too." But I don't know. I like Jared McCain. I like VJ Edgecombe. I'm excited about those guys, what they're going to become. But yeah, this I don't know, have any clue why they re-signed Eric Gordon and Kyle Lowry.
What do you mean? They're like the best players on the team now.
When
Um,
Gordon, just real quick, Gordon declined his player option, and I was like, "Whoa! How did the Sixers luck into him declining it?" And then they re-signed him.
Oh, that's hilarious. Um, so I was actually kind of thinking about this for a couple days, and then Zach Lowe actually brought it up on his most recent podcast. The Sixers are in kind of a two timeline situation, kind of like how the Warriors were a couple years ago, where they've got this Embiid, Paul George. I guess you could throw Eric Gordon and Kyle Lowry into this timeline, but then they also have a group of young guys in VJ Edgecombe, McCain, Maxey. You could throw in there too, Boner. All like I feel like the timelines of the team are kind of pitted against each other, and I'm honestly at a point where I'm like, I think it would be better for them to transition to the young group and just go with those
Yeah,
guys. I love Maxey, and
yeah,
McCain was solid too. And when he played last year, I just
and Grimes.
yeah, I forgot about him too. I mean, you could throw him in there with the young guys.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So yeah, I mean maybe we'll see a bounce back year next year, but with the Warriors when they bounce back after having the number 2 pick, it's because they were injured and they're durable players that came back and were fine. But the Sixers have just had too many years like that with injuries. So
Hmm.
we'll see what happens. But for Maxi's sake, I hope they're better next year.
Yeah, I love that guy. I always will.
Yeah. Okay, my last one I want to talk about is a team that went from being losers because they did nothing and never do anything to making a trade just last week and all of a sudden becoming winners in my mind. And that's the
Yeah.
Miami Heat.
Hmm.
And this one is close to home because my father-in-law and brother-in-law, they're both big Heat fans. And every year in NBA free agency, they're like, okay, what are we going to do this year, man? And always trying to talk about all these big name guys they could get. And I'm like, yeah, there's no
Hmm.
way you're getting that. And I remember back when the Bucks got Lillard, obviously the Heat were the big player in that, where everyone thought Lillard was going to the Heat, and they were just they locked it in. They're like, "Oh yeah, we're getting Lillard. Our team's going to be great next year." And then the Bucks slid in, and they were pissed at me for weeks. And so to see the Heat actually finally make a move, because every year it feels like they're bummed out because the Heat do nothing. It seems kind of small, but they traded for Norm Powell. And Norm Powell, like I said earlier, was a borderline all star last year for the Clippers, had a fantastic first half of the season. And he's a guy that's always been like a 6 man of the year contender, but put in the starting lineup, he really broke out. And so the Heat get him. I believe they had to trade. It was just Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if there was
Yeah,
picks involved. But,
I think there was a second rounder in there, or maybe a couple of them, but not much.
okay. Yeah, so, I mean, two players that weren't doing much for their team. Um, with all the wings that the Heat have, Kyle Anderson was kind of irrelevant. But they get Norm Powell, who, let me just pull up his stats real quick. Um, he's a 3 tier scorer. Oh, never mind. He's a 3 tier scorer. Um, his three ball is pretty consistent, pretty reliable. He is an above average defender. I think that's gone downhill a little bit in the last couple of years. Started his career as more of a well known defender, but still an above
Hmm.
average guy. A guy that's going to be able to help out next to Tyler Hero in the backcourt defensively. But listen to the starting lineup. This is assuming they start Powell, but it's Tyler Hero, Norman Powell, Andrew Wiggins, Bam Adebayo, Kel'el Ware. And as you know, Drew, I love Kel'el Ware. He's a guy I
Hmm.
really wanted on the Bucks. Had a really fun rookie season. He's working on his 3 point shot, but just a really quick rim protector type guy that I think is going to get even better this year. Then their bench, Davion Mitchell, who I love, they re-signed.
Hmm.
Haywood Highsmith, one of the guys I've always wanted on the Bucks. Great
Yep,
wing
me too.
defender, guards all five positions. Nikola Jovic, a guy we're still seeing if he'll make that year three jump. And then they still have Jaime Jaquez, a guy that struggled last year but could make a year three jump.
Hmm.
Pelle Larson was a rookie that played a lot of minutes last year. Maybe it's
Yeah.
Pele, I don't know. And then they still have Terry Rozier. But they lost Duncan Robinson to the Pistons. He was kind of getting played out of the rotation anyways. So I don't know. That starting lineup seems kind of crazy. And this is a team that 3 weeks or 2 weeks ago I would have said, okay, we'll see them in the play-in again next year, see if they can get themselves up to a 7 or 8 seed. But this year, with the way that the Eastern Conference is looking with all the injuries, I think they're going to firmly be in that tier with the Bucks, the Magic, the Pistons, kind of fighting for a spot in there if they can stay healthy. So I'm excited about the
Hmm.
Heat, and this is a team that I actually think is pretty fun, and it's going to be hard not to cheer for them.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think it's out of the question to say that next season Terry Rozier, Bam Adebayo, Kelly Ware, Jaime Jaquez, all four of those guys play considerably better than they did last year.
Yeah.
Can I was thinking of this though when you're talking about the trade terms. I want to take a second to on air for all the internet to hear say that I can't stand Kyle Anderson. It bugs me so much that the dude's an NBA player and has been around for like a decade, but he still can't stop shooting like a tortoise. Like I just don't get how do you not fix that when he obviously would be so much better if he would could figure out how to shoot like a normal human.
It's not that just the shot looks weird, it's the release speed. They call him
Yeah,
slow mo
it's
because he
so
can't get it
bad.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like it's literally your job. Go spend all summer training with Pat Connaughton, learning how to do the just quick release shot.
Yeah.
Or it can't be that hard to just get marginally better at it every single season. And he just never improves. And I just think it's ridiculous. And I hate that a guy like that somehow stuck around in the NBA.
Yeah. I hope Andre Jackson Jr. is listening to this.
Yeah. Yeah. He's at risk of becoming that as well.
Yeah. Well, we might have to talk about this on our next pod, but I wonder what they're going to do with his contract because they only partially guaranteed it. So,
Yeah.
see what happens
I
there.
think he, I think he gets cut, but I don't know. I don't know if he
Yeah.
gets picked up by anybody else if the Bucks cut him. It's been that bad lately.
He's a guy I'm not worried about breaking out with another team if we cut him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's I feel the same way about him, about the potential of losing him as I did about the potential of losing a guy like Jordan Nwora.
Yeah.
Just don't worry about it at all.
Yeah. Okay. Who's your last team?
Have you finished all your teams?
Let me double check, but I think so. Yep.
All right. So then I will close it out with the team that um, I'm actually really excited about, and I'm excited about them on kind of a championship level. Um, Trying to think, like I talked about the Sixers, the Jazz, the Pistons. I guess I talked about the Cavs. They're a championship caliber team. But I also feel the same way about this, and it might be a little bit of a hot take, but I think the Houston Rockets are a legit title contender in the Western Conference this season. Um, are you on the same page as me?
100%.
Okay. So then, with that renewed confidence of having my brother agree with me, I'm going to dig into this. I think I love watching a team, and we talked about the Knicks with this, where I love watching a team where you can see they have a clear issue, and then they address that singular issue in the summer. And I think the Rockets did this, and to me, watching the Rockets in that series against the Warriors, I thought they held tight. They were better than the Warriors in a lot of situations, but when it came down to it, you're just never going to win a series when one guy has or one team has Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler scoring in crunch time in close games, and the other team relies on Fred VanVleet.
Yeah.
And I got so tired of watching Fred VanVleet have to do all of the crunch time offensive creation for this team. And I was kind of wondering, like, were the numbers as bad as what it looked like to my eyes? So I went back and I looked at some of the data. So in the regular season, this number absolutely blew my mind. Fred VanVleet, all regular season last year, only made 80 baskets in the paint.
What?
Yeah.
One per
So
game?
that's less than one per game. He only made 80 baskets in the paint. And that guy was their point guard who was like carrying the bulk of the offense. And he had 80 baskets in the paint.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, that was bad. But then I was looking at shot creator data. He shot under 40% from the mid range and only 34.5% from three. He didn't have on his shot chart, he didn't have a single quadrant of the court, mid range from three in the paint, that was green. Nothing. All yellow and red, mostly red. And so I just,
Yikes.
in playoff games, when it's going to be close and you need efficient scorers, they had to turn to Fred VanVleet, who, in my opinion, he's a great player. I like him a lot. I think he does some good things. He is such an inefficient scorer, and he's the last guy I would want to try and go bucket for bucket against Steph Curry. And
Yeah.
watching that, I had no hope for the Rockets that they were ever going to close out any of those games. So what did the Rockets do that in my mind made them big winners? They went out and they addressed that one thing by getting maybe the most skilled and efficient scorer of the 21st century in Kevin Durant, and they brought him in. And they're going to plug him into this lineup, and I think it's going to make a world of difference for the Rockets.
I agree. Kevin Durant's another one of those guys, just like Harden, where I was talking about all of a sudden liking him because I'm nostalgic. He's one of my
Hmm.
favorite players right now. And the same thing you're talking about. The Rockets were one of my favorite teams last year, kind of by default, because a lot of the Western teams I just despised. And it was just hard to fully get behind them because they're relying on Van Vliet and Sengun. And so I'm really stoked about them getting Kevin Durant.
Yeah, me too. I what was it with that old Nets team that had Harden and Kyrie and KD? We hated all three of their guts, and then as soon as they leave, like everybody loves them.
Yeah, that's so true. I think it was really Blake
KD's,
Griffin that was the problem.
yeah, it was Blake Griffin and young Bruce Brown that we hated.
And then they also had Aldridge and Joe Harris.
Yeah, I'm glad they had Joe Harris couldn't make a shot in that overtime.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, back to KD. I just think he's the perfect addition for this team. And if they have him closing out those games in the fourth quarter against the Warriors, they're winning that series. They just are.
Yeah.
And if also, man, if there's two players in the NBA that I would want to put KD next to, hoping that he can just kind of rub off on them, it's probably Amen Thompson and Jabari Smith Jr.
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
Those guys.
Not to mention, not to mention they got Finney Smith, who I think is going to be a great player for them.
Yep.
Kind of fills that Dylan Brooks role to a certain extent.
Hmm.
Really like Tari Eason. Steven Adams is still such a winner. Those
Hmm.
screens kill. And then
Hmm.
this one kind of confused me why they did it, but still I think it's going to help them for depth. They got Clint Capella too.
Hmm.
So that roster is freaking deep.
Yeah, and just the optionality they have with it. I mean, they could easily set it up where if Şengün is really struggling in certain matchups, they can go double big without Şengün. They can go single big without Şengün. They could play five out around Şengün. They can set their lineups really easily to where they could have KD playing on ball. They could have KD playing off ball. They have lob threats they can throw with Van Fleet. Like just that's why I feel the way I do about the Capella signing and the Finney Smith signing. That those are the types of guys that you get that just they're just such good chess pieces and late in playoff series is that it's going to be really fun to watch, man. And I think KD is maybe as well set up as he has ever been post Warriors right now.
Yeah. I got a lineup to throw at you.
Okay.
There's so many different lineups this team could play. That's why I'm most excited about them.
Yeah.
But think about this. Amen Thompson running point. You have KD at the 2. You have Finney Smith at the 3. You have Tari Eason at the 4. You have Jabari Smith at the 5. Think
Oh,
about how long and athletic that lineup is. Still with
yeah.
shooting. Holy cow. And then they
Yeah.
still have Şengün, Adams, Capella. Man, I'm excited to see what they do with Udoka. I think he's a great coach, so I'm excited to see what he runs up.
Yeah, he is a great coach. The only thing that worries me is, I mean, I know they talk about Reed Shepherd like they like him, but we just haven't seen anything from him yet. So,
Yeah,
like, do they need another ball handling point guard behind Van Vliet? They might.
yeah, that's true. But yeah, I think that was 10 really fun teams to talk about. I told Liv right before hopping on this episode, she's like, "Is there any preparation you need to do?" And I said, "No, I could literally just get on and talk for 6 straight hours about this stuff. It's so easy to talk about, and we might have to do another podcast talking about some other teams. We will for sure do some tiering as the season gets closer. We still have several months, but we're going to get into more of that, talking about our rankings of certain NBA teams. But did you have any closing thoughts, Drew, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. I feel like these type of episodes are really fun. I think they're good for listeners to kind of get a feel on where teams are at, going into the season. And we still got a long summer ahead of us. I mean, I don't see why we couldn't do 10 more teams next time and then the
Yeah,
remaining 10 teams another time. Um, but yeah, I'm with you. I just think with most every team in the NBA, there's something to get excited about. There's so many good players in the league right now. It's just, there's
yeah,
so much good basketball to watch. And I'm glad that Kennedy's better at going to sleep on time these days. So maybe this season I'll get to watch it a little more.
yeah. My last plug. I know there's a lot of listeners out there that are listening just because it's us doing a podcast. I want you to hear our voices in saying the NBA is hitting its stride. This
Yeah.
is one of the greatest times to be an NBA fan to get back into it. So if you felt yourself kind of slipping and kind of a little confused about what we're talking about in this episode, let this be your moment to get ready for this next NBA season and to watch a lot of basketball because it's the time to be a fan once again, especially with Damian Lillard going back to the Blazers. I think it's bringing it all together for me. It's been fun.
You getting goosebumps over there?
A little bit.
Yeah. I'm with you though. The NBA is different now. I mean, we have some listeners who are older and may have been into the NBA in different eras. And yeah, it's totally different sport right now. Personally, I think it's a lot more fun to watch. But the there's just so many good players, so many smart coaches, and such good competition. And I mean, I know a couple weeks ago I talked about how I really like the future of the WNBA, and I still do. I've been loving watching girls basketball. I feel the same way about the NBA, man. The sport, if Adam Silver can figure out how to get out of his own way, the sport's on a really good upward trajectory, and there's a lot of good basketball being played that's great to watch.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, on that note, we're going to sign off, but we'll be
Do we
back soon.
do we want to tease what we might do for our next episode? Are we going to do some Packers content next, or
Yeah, I think it's time we do our Packers pre-training camp 53-man prediction for the roster,
okay?
if you
And then I
agree.
will say we'll try and for the rest of this summer we'll try and get some good like team previews for NFL and NBA. Kind of help you guys make sure you're ready for all the new sports to start and keep you up to date on stuff.
Yeah, I love it. Well, this has been a great episode of Kip and Chip Sports Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a good night.
Love you.